Today, our lesson 3, topic 7, about the experimental probability. Now, look and listen to the video and then concentrate.
How does experimental probability compare to theoretical probability? Think about this question during the lesson. Talia and Yoshi plan for 1 out of 8, or 12.5%, of the players winning a prize. During the school fair, they kept track of the numbers of total players and winners, and they recorded the data in the table shown here. How does the actual number of winners compare to the expected number of winners? The first step is to determine the relative frequency of winners during each time period. The relative frequency is the ratio of the number of times an event occurs to the total number of trials. In this case, it is equal to the ratio of the number of winners to the total number of players. We can find the relative frequency for each time period and for the total number of contestants. The relative frequency from 10 to noon is about 10 3/10%. The relative frequency from noon to 2 is about 13 7/10%. So the relative frequency for the entire day will be between 10 3/10 and 13 7/10. For the total number of contestants, the relative frequency is 58 over 475, or about 12 2/10%. The relative frequency of an event can also be called experimental probability. Which value is greater in this situation? The experimental probability or the theoretical probability?
Select your answer.
The experimental probability of winning the game is 12 2/10%. This is slightly lower than the theoretical probability, which is 1/8, or 12 1/2%. The game had 58 winners out of 475 players. There were slightly fewer winners than Talia and Yoshi expected. Now you know how experimental probability is similar to and different from theoretical probability.
Okay. There is a difference between the theoretical probability and experimental probability. The theoretical probability is how to find the probability of winner in a spinner. Here, experimental, after many trial, we can find the experimental probability. And here we found that the theoretical is more than experimental. But if we make more trial, so we can reach to the same percent. Okay, now we will go to the practical part. Okay, goodbye. (371). Question number 7. Our lesson today about the probability. Okay, what is the difference between the lesson for today and the previous lesson? Today is the lesson about experimental probability and the previous is about theoretical. Okay, look, question number 7, we have a table for wheel spins. Outcomes 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the frequency 8, 22, 18, and 32. And we find the total for frequency equals 80. Why we find the total? Because when we want to find the probability, we must divide it by the total outcomes or the total trial. So the total trial here equals 80, so we want to divide it by 80. The relative frequency on 3, it means the probability of 3. Look here, at 3, how many times? Yes, 18, so we divided 18 by the total here, total number equals what? 80. Now we want to divide it 18 by 80 and convert it to percent. To convert it to percent, we must put 2 zeros. It will be 1800 over 80. So we divided 1800 over 80. We can cancel 0. So 180 divided 8. Now we divided 18 divided by 8 equals how many 8 in 18? Yes, 2. 2 times 8 equal 16. Then subtract 18 minus 16 equals 2. Now drop 0. It will be 20. 20 divided 8 equals how many 8 in 20? Yes, 2. 2 times 8 equals 16. Subtract equal 4. We drop. There is no number to drop. So we put 0 and decimal point. Now 40 divided 8 equals, yes, 5. 5 times 8 equals 40. The answer equals 0. So we have 22.5%. Yes, question number 8. Liz flips a coin 50 times. The coin land head up 20 times and the tail up 30 times. Complete each statement. The theoretical probability of coin landing on a head. Theoretical, it means without made any experiment. So what is the probability of head? The coin has two faces, head and the tail. Each one represents 50% or half the probability. So the theoretical probability of head equals half, it means 50%. But during the experiment here, experimental probability equal the number of times head appear of total numbers of trail. Okay, head appear here how many times? Yes, 20 times. And the total trail equals 50 times. So 20 divided 50 equals how many percent? We can multiply by 2. It will be 40 over 100. It means 40%. Now the theoretical equal 50% and the experimental equal 40%. So which is greater, theoretical or experimental? Yes, here theoretical is greater, equals 50%, more than 40, so it's greater than. Okay, why the theoretical greater than the experimental? Okay, they must be close to each other, but if we make more trail, we can reach to the same percent. Number 10. Here, number 10, we have a table. The table shows the results of survey of 100 people randomly selected at an airport. Find the experimental probability that person is going to city E. City E. Okay, look at the table. How many people in E? Yes, 8. And the total one equal, all people equal 100. 8 over 100, it means 8%. Okay, thank you and goodbye.